Welcome into another edition of the DFO DFS report. Welcome to another week. Happy Monday to everybody out there. Zach, I think it is going to be a fun week of DFS here on the DFO DFS report. Gone are the 13, 15 game slates of last week. We've got a much friendlier show schedule this week. We got 3 games tonight, 10 games tomorrow, 4 games on Wednesday, 9 games on Thursday, and 6 games on Friday. So all decent sized slates. It's going to be a lot easier for us. It's going to be a lot more entertaining for the viewers. It's going to be a lot better for DFS action. So it's a new week. Mondays suck, but this feels good.
Yeah, this does feel good. I much prefer these smaller slates. I kind of hate those big 10, 11, 12 gamers. So fire me up for what looks like a pretty fun week here.
Yeah, like 6, 8, even 10 games isn't too bad. 10 is where it starts to push you. Then you get like 14, 15. It's like, this is ridiculous. And we had 3 of those last week. So here we go. Let's start with today's starting goalies. And again, thank you. If you are here live with us right now, thanks for tuning in a little bit earlier. I've got an x-ray appointment this afternoon. And Zach, funny enough, you do as well today. So I don't know, maybe we're just falling apart here at the DFO DFS report. But we're going to try to get through this in under 30 minutes. We've got our new friend, Jeff Merrick, starting his new show over at the other daily Faceoff channel at 3 p.m. Eastern. So we don't want to step on his toes. And we'll move over and let Jeff Merrick take the wheel his first official day at Daily Faceoff. So let's start with the goalies. Igor Shesterkin gets the nod for the New York Rangers, likely going to see Jacob Markstrom for the New Jersey Devils. Anthony Stolarz gets the nod for the Toronto Maple Leafs, likely going to see Arvid Soderblom on the second half of a back-to-back for the Chicago Blackhawks. The Utah Hockey Club will go back to Karel Vejmelka despite a fantastic performance by Jackson Stauber over the weekend. Casey Smith confirmed to get the start for the Dallas Stars, second back-to-back for them as well. Let's get to tonight's games. We'll start at the top with the Rangers and the Devils. Pretty tight one here. We've got the Devils as slight road favorites, minus 118 in New York tonight. The Rangers, let's start with them because they have been shuffling up their lineup a little bit recently. So we saw Philip Heidel come back to the lineup on Saturday. He immediately was thrust on the top line with Artemi Panarin and Will Cooley to start things off. Tonight they will go with Alexis Lafreniere on that top line. Cooley down to the second line with Trocheck and Kakko. Kreider, who returned to the lineup on Saturday, will stick with Mika Zibanejad and Riley Smith, which was their top line to start the year. Boy, how they have fallen down the depth chart here with kind of some slow performances early this season. Matchup-wise in this game, the Panarin line looks like they're in a pretty good spot. The Rangers don't do a ton of hard matching right now, at least, or recently, I should say. They're going to see a lot of the bottom 9 here for the New Jersey Devils. The better matchups are on the Devil side of things, specifically this Nico Hischier line, which we'll get to in a second because their numbers are just insane. But yeah, this is an interesting new look for the Rangers. They've obviously been pretty sluggish recently. We'll see if things get cooked back up with these new lines. Now, Zach, we talked about New York 3 a ton early in the season. You had Cooley, Heidel, and Kakko. They were unbelievable. I actually, last I checked, I think they've had like a roughly, don't quote me exactly on these numbers, but like close to 120 5v5 minutes together this season, and they have yet to give up a 5v5 goal. I believe they've outscored the opposition something like 11-0. That's how good that line's been. So I was actually excited to see Cooley, Panarin, Kakko stick for a little bit, see what could happen. But now you've got Lafreniere, Heidel, and Panarin together. This is a line that they put together a lot last year when Heidel finally returned to the lineup in the second half of the season, and they were really, really good together. 3.3 expected goals for per 60, 37 scoring chances. So this is a line that we've seen do it quite a bit together in the past, and then now they got a pretty nice matchup here. They're going to see a lot of this bottom 9 for the Devils. They're going to avoid that Hischier line primarily, so they, decent matchup against the Hughes line, decent matchup against the third line. Pretty good setup here for New York 1 in this Panarin line, which has let us down a little bit recently to bounce back tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I got a lot of interest in this line here. They're projecting for really low ownership right now, coming around 5, 6, 7%. And I think they're just in such an interesting spot here, and the public is just not getting to them whatsoever. You take a look at this. They're the 4th best line to target here. And you mentioned the success that they had last year. And, you kind of look at the way this Rangers lineup is built right now, and it's like, where's the offense really going to come from? I don't think it's coming from that second line, Cooley, Trocheck, and Kakko. Their third line, formerly the first line, Chris Kreider, Mika Zibanejad, Riley Smith, like they've just been awful this year. They all 3 of them look like shells of themselves right now. So, I think if there's a line to target here on this Rangers side of things, I've got all my interest in New York one, pretty comfortably fading the other two lines. Even though that third line is drawing a little bit more ownership, it feels like they're in a great spot here. Obviously the Devils have been really solid as of late. Jacob Markstrom is playing some pretty solid hockey, all things considering, but even him, he hasn't been like tremendous or anything like that this year. 902 save percentage and only 0.6 goals saved above expected. But he's doing enough to keep them in games and letting the offense kind of take over. So I think this is a really interesting spot here for this Rangers top line.
Yeah, you talk about that third line, Kreider's Bandejad. I mean, they've never been known for doing a ton of damage at 5v5. In recent seasons, they've been okay, not great. Similar to kind of what we're seeing this year, 2.4 goals, 4/60. They're not generating a ton. It's not terrible, like you said, but it's not great. They've been heavily relying on the power play, and that power play has really been a sore spot for the Rangers lately. 25th ranked PP in their last 10 games. They do have a decent matchup tonight against the Devils penalty kill. That's not been great, but when the Rangers power play isn't clicking on all cylinders, then that's really going to have a massive impact on the guys that rely on that power play. And that's Bandejad and that's Kreider. So yeah, it's hard to really have a ton of interest in them. Like obviously, Kreider down to 4,900 and Zibanejad down to 6,000. It's easy to see why you might click on them, and their ownership is going to be around 7-8%. But yeah, I'm in agreement with you that New York one's the spot to be tonight. They're the lower owned. They're pretty low owned. Really like Philip Heidel's game so far this season. Panarin, Lafreniere slowed down a little bit recently. They really need those guys to get going, or they're going to be in big trouble. So I hope that they can kind of keep things going tonight, because I mean, it's so rare to see a 3-game slate and have a top line that's kind of this explosive with that low of ownership. So yeah, I'm certainly going to be in on them tonight, and probably way over the field. I'm quite interested in New York one. On the other side, New Jersey has been playing some very good hockey recently, and this top line with Nico Hischier, Stefan Nason, and Timo Meier has just been unbelievable. I mean, look at these offensive numbers. They're incredible. 4.5 expected goals, 4/60, 41 scored, 24 high danger chances. Are you shitting me? That's like unbelievable stuff. They've been great. You've got Nation, who's been, I've talked about him a lot this year, kind of a guy that's more often than not been a power play merchant early in his career. He's still doing that, still scoring on the power play, but he has been really good at 5v5 with this top line as well. So that's a line that I have a ton of interest in tonight as well. Then the Jack Hughes line, still pretty good numbers across the board. Still waiting for them to kind of look a little bit more like themselves. Like we talked about, Jesper Bratt's just kind of quietly just putting up a point per game every single night. But like we haven't had too many of those like massive explosive games. Now the Rangers obviously, are a team that has struggled defensively. We talked about that a lot this year. And unless their goalies, what I've said every time they've played, unless their goalies are on God mode, which we know Shesterkin can do, the other team is certainly capable of racking up plenty of goals on any given night, because they've just struggled so much. Highest paced game of the night. I feel like you've probably, like me, have a ton of interest in this Devils side. They're drawing a decent amount of ownership. The Hischier line a little bit more than the Hughes line. They're a little bit cheaper, and I'm assuming that's probably why. Are you in agreement with me, and are you in agreement with the charts, and are you in agreement with the own percentage that you feel a little bit better about the Hischier line, or are you going to the Hughes line? I feel like we've kind of been on opposite sides of this one this year. I've been more Hischier, you've been more Hughes.
Yeah, I have been a little bit more Hughes, but I honestly like both of these lines. I mean, I think this is a game just as a whole that really has the opportunity to kind of pop off offensively. The Rangers have kind of dominated as of late. They've won 4 straight games, really limiting what the Devils have done, who have scored 3, 1, and 3 goals, in those last 4 games rather. But it feels like the Devils are kind of rolling right now. And I think Igor Shesterkin is not quite looking like himself either. I think his numbers have been fine in the most part for this season. 912 save percentage, 6.6 goals saved above expected. That last number is a really solid clip. But it just hasn't felt like it's been Igor Shesterkin playing like Igor Shesterkin. So I think he's somebody that can be gettable here tonight in this game. I've got a ton of interest in the Devils as well here. I mean, both of these lines look absolutely wonderful, as does like a power play stack too. where you can open yourself up, get some exposure to both of these lines, and kind of go with the Devil's onslaught if you really feel good about this matchup. That's definitely a way that I'm going to be attacking this game, is through the power play here for the Devils side of things. I think it's going to help open up the ability to get more exposure to this Devils team as a whole, and probably something that not a lot of people are kind of going to be building around on a small 3-game slate here. So yeah, I don't know if I have one line that I like more than the other. I think the numbers kind of bear out that the Devils top line is probably the line to target. But I mean, you can't argue with what Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt have done either. Bratt doesn't quite have the shot volume that he did last year, but he's shooting the lights out, scoring 1.4 goals per hour of ice time, 1.3 expected goals for individual expected goals for per hour of ice time as well. So a lot of quality looks, a lot of quality finishing. I think the Devils are in a solid spot here tonight too.
Yeah, I think what's kind of held New Jersey to the Hughes line back a little bit has just been Jack Hughes' lack of goal scoring, putting up assists at an outrageous clip, just not scoring as many goals as we've seen. He's still shooting the puck a ton. We've seen him in his last couple games have a 6 and 7 shot performance. So he's had those big kind of blow up shot performances, but just still not scoring a ton. In the month of November, 5 goals, 18 points in 14 games. So definitely racking up the apples, just not scoring quite as much. And then Bratt, 18 points, 9 goals, 9 assists in 14 games in November. So they were both really, really good. Hughes kind of had Hughes has 3 assist games in like his last 6 games. He's been really, really good. But yeah, just still kind of lacking, I guess, those kind of blow up performances, which tonight they got the number 1 power play advantage on the slate. Their power play has been excellent. Number 1 power play overall. Do draw a fairly tough matchup against a Rangers PK that's been very good lately at number 3. But yeah, they take a lot of penalties, the Rangers, that is, and the Devils look like, yeah, if you want to attack through 5v5 through the power play, both those lines look really, really solid. And then to your point, Igor Shesterkin's last 8 performances, just 2 and 6. He has an .889 save percentage during that time. He's only had 2 of those games in which he's held opponents to 2 or fewer goals, and the opponents in those games were the Flyers and the Sharks. Basically, anybody else that he's played with potent offense or reasonably potent offense recently has gotten to him. And I think, like I said, if he's not on God mode, they're going to give up goals. And I think we're starting to see this kind of catch up to Shesterkin. The Rangers are just so bad defensively, and it's hard for even one of the best goalies in the world to cover all of that up. So, yeah, he's been struggling a little bit recently. I do think that this game can get quite high scoring. Next game, we've got the Maple Leafs and the Blackhawks. The Maple Leafs, by far the biggest favorites on the night, highest implied total at 4. You've got the Blackhawks at 2. Blackhawks in the second half of back-to-back. Zach, we talked about it a little bit pre-show. Like, yes, the Blackhawks, massive underdogs. Yes, the Maple Leafs, massive favorites. Arvid Soderblom, though, he's performed well in these spots in the past. I believe it was last year I remember him just having a godlike performance against these Maple Leafs. You got those numbers in front of you still?
Yeah, I do. So Arvid Soderblom, 2 games against the Leafs last year, 2-0 record in them, 193 goals against average, and 945 save percentage. The first game, it was a 4-1 win for Chicago. He turned aside 35 shots, or made 35 saves rather. So get the 35 save bonus there. 972 save percentage. The second game, 4-3 win in overtime for the Blackhawks. 3 goals against on 37 shots faced. So he has been awesome against Toronto in those 2 games that he played last year. Obviously, small sample size here. We're still not sure how well the past predicts the future. But to be fair, you did play some Mackenzie Blackwood against the Kraken on the weekend, and he did perform really well there. I think this is a really interesting game, and quite honestly, a game that kind of scares me a little bit here. You're seeing so much ownership coming in on this Toronto side here tonight. And as we always talk about with that Jason Dickinson line on the third line, really a shutdown line that really limits the other team's offense. Toronto 1 is not going to see him. It's actually going to be Toronto 2 getting most of their ice time or not most of their ice time, but Chicago 3's most of their ice times coming against Toronto 2. I think this is a game where I'm really comfortable fading Tavares and Marner, playing Toronto 1 here. I don't know if I'm going to get to these numbers that they're at currently in terms of their ownership, but the Leafs top line looks to be in a really great spot here tonight.
It's funny that Soderblom had those performances last year because he was so bad like all year. But just 2 unbelievable performances against the Leafs, and he's been a lot better this year. 933 save percentage in his last 4 outings. Granted, not the best competition. 2 of those games against the Ducks, then Dallas and Vancouver. But yeah, I don't know. I think it is, if you're building a lot of lineups tonight, yeah, have some Soderblom. I do still like the Leafs. Like, it's hard to not like this Matthews line with a 100% matchup score. As you said, they're expected to go head to head with the Bedard line most of the night. That Bedard line, really, really bad defensively. We saw him, with Dickinson there for a little bit. That helped, but now they're separating those two again. And yeah, really, really ugly defensive numbers here for Chicago 1. Obviously, really good numbers across the board for Toronto 1. So really like that matchup for Toronto 1. But yeah, like outside of that, I don't know how much interest I have in the Maple Leafs. Like, we saw this Tavares, Mitch Marner combination have a lot of success while Matthews was out. With Matthews back, their ice time is going to go back down a little bit. Tonight, they draw the much tougher matchups. They're going to see a lot of the second, third, and fourth line of the Blackhawks, which grade out, the third line specifically grades out very well defensively. That's that Dickinson line. The second line, not too terrible, still giving up only 1.7 goals against, 2.4 expected goals against. So not much more difficult matchup for this Tavares line, which their offensive numbers just pale in comparison to that Matthews line. So yeah, this game's pretty easy for me. I'm probably not going to play a whole lot of Chicago. The Maple Leafs have been very solid defensively this season, as you can see by the numbers here. Anthony Stolarz has been outstanding in the net, maybe a couple bumps in the road recently, but by and large this year he's been very good. So this game's pretty simple for me. I think I'm going to have a lot of Toronto 1. I think I'm not going to have a lot of Chicago. Yes, Toronto 1 is very chalky. 33% owned as a line. Matthews 42%. William Nylander 37%. Just going to try to find ways to get different elsewhere because I feel like they're in just an absolutely outstanding spot in this one. And then you talk about the power play. They got the number 2 power play. It's been a bit of a sluggish start for them this season. They obviously really sort of found themselves without Austin Matthews in the lineup, which is kind of hilarious. And now they're clicking at this number 2 power play unit. The Blackhawks, to their credit, penalty kills been pretty good, number 4, but still, this top power play unit for the Maple Leafs right now, or at least recently, has been rolling out 5 forwards as well, which makes things pretty interesting. So, yeah, their power play has been good. I don't necessarily love Toronto 2. I'll probably sprinkle them in, but most of my ownership is going to come in on Toronto 1, who have a great 5v5 matchup, and they also fully correlate on the top power play unit with this 5 forward power play. So, did I talk you into them a little bit at all? Are you going to eat some chalk or no?
Yeah, I think I'm going to be eating some of this chalk on Toronto 1. I mean, like I said, they're in just such a great spot here on this slate tonight. They grade out as a number 1 line to target. I think the ownership is justified, given that it's a small slate here. But in the same breath, it just kind of scares me. I mean, I'm 3 maxing tonight. I'm only building 3 lineups. I think I'll probably have Toronto 1 in one of those 3 lineups, and I'm probably going to have a build with Arvid Soderblom in there just to kind of hedge myself a little bit too in this game, because there's some other spots on this slate that I really like. Like, I really like this Rangers top line and the way that they look. Obviously a minimum priced Soderblom at $7K, that would really open you up to a lot of some of these other options on this slate as well.
Yeah, projected to obviously see the most shot volume on the slate, 30.7 shots against 7K. It's always scary to play a goalie that's got a 22.6 implied win percentage. A little bit nerve-wracking. But yes, he obviously has that kind of just slate-breaking capability if he stands on his head again. Maybe he just really likes playing against the Maple Leafs. Who knows? Okay, third and final game of the night. You've got Utah and Dallas. Now, this game is going to be a little bit more difficult to break down. We got word right before the show, about an hour before the show, that Tyler Seguin landed on IR. He is not going to be available tonight. That obviously breaks up that dominant second line, which I've been saying is going to cool off. They have to cool off eventually. They cannot keep shooting the way they are. And insert the Breaking Bad meme of they just can't keep getting away with this because it's unbelievable. They just continue to do it. But with Seguin out, he's missed some time. He's been dealing with a nagging injury throughout the year. When he was out, Dadonov was bumped up to that line. That's the way I projected it to happen. That's what we saw earlier. So I don't think there's any reason to expect otherwise. Other possibilities, I think Logan Stankoven is obviously an option to move up there. I think Logan Stankoven and Wyatt Johnson could move down. There's plenty of options. So just keep in mind that these Dallas lines aren't necessarily written in stone, but they are a team that likes to keep their lines pretty tight. And we saw Dadonov with those 2 earlier in the season. So that's where that projection comes from, just to let you know. So how the matchups look in this game, really, really good matchup for the top line. of Utah. Really, really good matchup for the top line of the Stars. Those are the two lines to basically focus on in this game because, yeah, the matchups are outstanding. So you've got Dallas 1. We'll start there. They're going to see a lot of the third line here for the Utah Hockey Club. That Utah Hockey Club third line, pretty mediocre defensively. They're also going to see a little bit of the second line, which really, really poor defensive metrics there. So decent matchup there for Dallas 1, which, we keep waiting for them to come around. Haven't really seen it. When they were put back together, a couple, I guess it was early last week, I had to still use a lot of last year's sample. Now we are able to focus on this year's sample alone. And given the quality of the players in that line, they have scored at a 4.6 goals for per 60, but they really aren't generating anywhere close to what we saw a season ago. So a little bit hesitant there with them on a back-to-back. Obviously, the Dallas second line, these offensive metrics without Seguin are not nearly as good. What are you doing with the Dallas side of things tonight, given the different lines?
Yeah, it's kind of going to be a bit of a challenge. Obviously, this is the last game tonight, 9 o'clock Eastern time start, hour and a half after the Chicago-Toronto game. So we should have a good idea of what's happened in these first two games before we look at this third game tonight. I think it's a really interesting game for a number of reasons. I think a lot of my interest is honestly coming in on the Utah Hockey Club's top line here. In terms of the Stars, though, I'm probably targeting that top line and probably a little bit of the third line as well. It just feels like those are probably the best spots here. Dallas 1, we're still kind of waiting for them to really feel like they're clicking on all cylinders. Obviously, 4.6 goals per hour of ice time so far this year has been tremendous. But again, they're not really generating the quality looks that it's felt like they have in the past. I think there's reason to have interest in them. I'm probably going to have them in the player pool here tonight. But this Utah Hockey Club top line, I think, is really, really interesting. Nick Schmaltz finally off the schneid. 2-goal performance against Vegas over the weekend here. Kind of gets the monkey off of his back. Barrett Hayton, Clayton Keller also had good games. These are 3 guys that we've seen play together in the past in Arizona and be pretty dominant. The matchup looks great for them tonight here. 82.6 matchup score. And their offensive numbers are really solid too. 3.4 goals for per hour, 3.5 expected goals per hour. They're generating a high number of scoring chances and high danger chances. It feels like a really interesting spot here tonight, especially when you consider it's Casey DeSmith getting the start for the Dallas Stars, who has been pretty terrible this season. 7 games played, .891 save percentage, negative 1.5 goals saved above expected. Just in terms of straight up looking at goaltenders, he's probably my least favorite play on the slate because of the numbers in the past and the fact that he is drawing a fair amount of ownership, 11%. I don't know, man. This is kind of an interesting game for me. I really like this Utah top line, though.
Yeah, as I was looking at it here, I was like, there's got to be something up. And I found an error in the charts, specifically with this Dallas-Utah matchup scores, because I was looking, I'm like, Dallas 1's matchup doesn't make a lot of sense. And I was right, there is an error. So I'm trying to frantically figure out what their actual matchup scores would look like. And if you give me a moment, live on air here, okay, let's upload these new matchup scores. These look a lot more. Let's make a lot more sense. It's just this game that's messed up. So that's good news. Here we go. Okay, so those matchup scores get disgusting for both sides, which changes things a lot. So I'm going to make that update in the charts. I don't know what happened. That is absolutely hilarious. But yeah, that matchup didn't make a lot of sense. I'm like, they're not going to even see Utah too much. How are their numbers so good? So a little bit worse matchups across the board for both sides. Utah won, though, like you said, they've been playing very well, right? They absolutely smashed Vegas the other night. Utah 2's been firing on all cylinders recently as well. I do still have interest. Casey DeSmith, you talked about it early in the season. He was really good for the Stars. And then recently, man, you just can't trust him. I've been writing him up as a streaming target in season long because he's had great matchups. His last 2 starts against Anaheim and Chicago, it's these are great games in which Dallas should smash, and he should be a great play. He gave up 4 goals and 27 shots to the Ducks, and then 6 goals and 26 shots to the Blackhawks. So traveling to Utah on a back-to-back, Casey DeSmith between the pipes. I do still have interest in this Utah side of things tonight. The one good piece of information, despite the matchup stats being wrong, the actual 5v5 score data, these numbers are still correct. That was taking the right. So Utah 1 still does have a very good 5v5 score tonight. They grade out 5th. They're very, very affordable. They're not seeing a ton of ownership. I do have quite a bit of interest. As we mentioned, Jeff Merrick going live at 3 p.m. Eastern on the other Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. So we're going to not try to to cross over too much with that. We'll try to speed things up here to close out the show. On the power play tonight, second best power play advantage for the Stars. Not really anything there for Utah. Does that interest you at all in the Stars? Are you going back to look at that power play at all?
Yeah, I've got some interest there. The problem is the top unit only plays 59% of the ice time. So it's a little bit difficult to kind of attack the power play stacks here in this game. It's pretty easy to build around Dallas 1 and Miro Heiskanen to get exposure to that top unit. And the second line, too, you can build around Matt Duchene, Mason Marchment, and Thomas Harley. I think I'm comfortable building around those stacks in my player pool tonight if I'm building around the Dallas Stars. Also getting a little bit of that exposure to the power play, too.
All right, let's get to some of the projections. We'll get to the defenseman first. Anybody that really stands out to you as a great value, like Oliver Ekman-Larsson popping at 3,400. Thomas Harley 4Ks always seems like a solid play. Chris Tanev, don't know how much shot block equity he's actually going to have tonight against the Blackhawks. Esa Lindell always kind of just pops as a solid blue line play. Connor Timmins minimum price. Anybody that really pops for you? Philip Myers is expected to be on the top pair with Morgan Riley. I think that's kind of interesting at minimum price. He should see a decent amount of usage, only projected for 13 minutes. But if he does see extra minutes in the absence of Jake McCabe, I think Philip Myers at 2,500 is okay. In terms of the ownership coming in, who the public playing, a lot of Harley, a lot of Alec Martinez, a lot of Tanev. Brett Pesce. Love Brett Pesce. Correlates extremely well with that Heischer line. So you've got Pesce and Luke Hughes both correlating very well with New Jersey 1. Anybody else for you?
Brett Pesce looks like a great play, probably one of my favorites on the slate. I really like the Chicago defenseman here in this game in the top 4. Alex Vlasic, Connor Murphy, Alec Martinez, Wyatt Kaiser. Probably going to block a million shots tonight, or at least have the opportunity to do so. $2,700 Wyatt Kaiser. Really like him as a punt play here tonight. Otherwise, just correlating the rest of my defensemen, I think.
Martinez, Vlasic, Murphy, Crevier. Crevier's been pretty solid at minimum price as well. All right, between the pipes, it's always a little bit more difficult on these 3-game slates. You basically just don't want to stack against your goalie if you can avoid it. Solars obviously projects as the number 1 goalie tonight with thanks to his 80% implied win percentage. Really not expected to see too much shot volume, though. Kind of your safe kind of cash goalie tonight. Hopefully just going to lock up a victory, maybe 4-1, something like that. Only give up a goal on just minimum shots against. Outside of him, who are you really looking at? Who do you trust? Like Markstrom against the Rangers feels okay. And then Vejmelka against the Stars feels okay. The rest of them feel pretty risky.
Yeah, I agree. Again, 3 maxing for me tonight. Probably have 1 Stolarz, 1 Vejmelka, 1 Soderblom. Just try to find a way to get a little bit different here in terms of the goaltending. Vejmelka, like he's been awesome this year. 918 save percentage, 5.7 goals saved above expected in 12 games. Struggles against Dallas in the past. 0-3 with some pretty poor numbers. 4.29 goals against average. But it does feel like a decent enough spot here for Utah that I think I'd be comfortable playing him and just kind of hoping for the best.
Yeah, 921 save percentage in his last 5 outings. Also had a 49 save performance against Carolina. So he's a guy that can put up big performances against good hockey teams, and a guy that could definitely steal a victory tonight. Pretty low ownership as well. All right, let's go quickly to our hat trick picks of the evening. Again, if you want to participate in today's hat trick pick challenge, please comment your hat trick pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube, not the live chat. So we have it saved in there. YouTube. Comment section, who your hat trick pick's going to be tonight. If the player scores a hat trick, we'll get you a $25 gift card to nationgear.ca. Is it .ca or .com? I honestly don't know.
.ca, nationgear.ca.
There you go. I think I nailed it. Okay, who is your hat trick pick tonight, Zach?
Stay hot, Nick Schmaltz. He's going to keep burning up here and getting some of that goal scoring coming back to him here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Nico Hischier, man. He's just red hot. Absolutely love it. I think he's already got 1, maybe 2 hat tricks already this season. So I'll go with Nico Hischier. Okay, let's get quickly to our daily face-off head-to-head. So if you weren't here on Friday, Zach won our Thursday bet. He's a Bears fan. I'm a Lions fan. I gave him the 10 points. If the Bears covered the 10 points, he got to set my lineup for Friday's daily face-off head-to-head, which he did. Lineup did expectedly awful. He beat me by like 28 points. It was closer than it should have been. Jake Wallman came through for you late, but you won, bringing your record to 18-16. Should probably be an asterisk, but I did make the rules, so that's fair. Who do you got in your head-to-head tonight?
Yeah, wanted some exposure to this top line of the Toronto Maple Leafs, so got Austin Matthews in there as a one-off play. New York 1 looks great. Philip Hedl, Lafreniere, Nick Schmaltz, and Barrett Hayton for a little Utah 1. Some New Jersey Devils in the mix. Stefan Nation and Dougie Hamilton get a little exposure to the top power play unit, a little exposure to the Devils' top line. Anthony Stolarz looks like a lock for a W tonight. And then Alec Martinez. Let's see if he can block 1,000,000 shots tonight.
Yes, I went with the full Toronto 1 stack of Nyes, Nylander, and Matthews, fully correlated on that top power play unit as well. Went with Anthony Stolarz between the pipes, similar to you. Then I went with the Nico Hischier, Stefan Nation mini stack, along with the pair of Brett Pesce and Luke Hughes, which correlates very well with them at 5v5, both extremely cheap, both playing pretty well recently. And that left me with enough room to fit Philip Heitel as a one-off, one of the better one-offs on the slate tonight. We always talk about it's hard to find good centers at $4,000 on that top line. Really like Philip Heitel tonight. He's going to be great. And that is going to do it for today's DFO DFS report. As we mentioned, if you want to go check out Jeff Merrick's new show, The Sheet, that is live right now, 3 p.m. Eastern on the other YouTube channel, the DFO channel. If you just kind of found your way here because of the link, this is a new DFO fantasy YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode with me and Zach, all of our other great fantasy content as well. And make sure while you're there, smash that like button for us. Over 775 people watching right now. Let's get some likes on this one. And yeah, we'll see you guys back here tomorrow for a much bigger slate. Good luck tonight. Hopefully you return with more money in your bankroll. It's more than you had tonight. And as always, thanks to our friends at rotogrinders.com for projected ownership tonight. If you want to get $20 off your first month of NHL Premium at RotoGrinders, there's a link in the description of the video on YouTube. There's also a link to the DFO DFS Discord. Come join our DFO DFS Discord. We are always chatting DFS in there. Also giving you all that late breaking news so you don't miss a thing and your lineups aren't left with bagels in them. And we also run a DraftKings contest every single night. So come on in, join that as well. Any parting words, Zach?
Go watch Jeff Merrick's new show. Just drop the link down in the comments section below.
Perfect. See you tomorrow. Peace.
Peace.